What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Good morning. Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Northland Sports Page. Happy May 4th. May the 4th be with you to all of you Star Wars fans. I'm Brian Prudhomme. Judge me accordingly. When I was given the choice between Star Wars and Star Trek, I think time and time again I picked Star Search. I must have been more of an Ed McMahon guy, but speaking of Ed McMahon, there's my Dave Cook.
Oh, my gosh.
How you doing, buddy?
Wow. I'm well, thank you.
I was waiting for that. Yes. Because why? Because how often have we opened a game or a show and you know that it's a pet peeve of mine, so no surprise you do it. Sometimes I get done with a grandiose introduction and you'll hit me with, yes, Brian.
Uh-huh.
So the yes. Little Ed McMahon reference to start the show. Now, I pseudo warned you about that because I said as we walked in the door, I said, I've got kind of a prepared open ready to go today, and prepared is not me. But I said, I really hope you don't take offense and find the humor. I might have got a little from calling me, a little from calling me.
I didn't take offense. It just making me laugh because now at least I have a name and not just that other guy.
Absolutely. That's part of why I said it as well, because I would never dub you an Ed McMahon. I think you're a lot better than that, although may he rest. And if you ever want to show up at my house with a giant cardboard check, go ahead and do it.
Who did the redheaded guy, the night talk show guy?
Conan O'Brien?
Yes. Who was his sidekick?
Andy,
what's his name? Yes.
Yeah, somebody help me out with that.
So I
want to say Andy Richter.
The wrong guy here.
I want to say Andy Richter, but I'm not sure if that's right.
Well, that would be a little closer because at least he sat and made and got people as well. So
absolutely. So that is my sidekick.
If I could play a band, I'd be Paul Schaefer.
Well, you play an audience very well, and we must have an audience already because we do have people chiming in, laughing at the open, which is fine. They also, in addition to May the 4th, happy May the 4th to the Star Wars fans out there, I am now told that it is International Firefighters Day, and they wanted to shout out as well, and I will certainly give it to them. Where would we be without them?
Oh my gosh, you'd hate to be anywhere without them, right? Because you'd never know that one spark, and without them, things are really bad. Things are bad enough, but firefighters, I mean, we know so many of them. It's not just that they're great guys, but they're willing to put their lives on the line for you when you need them. So, I mean, happy International Firefighters Day.
Very much appreciated. So things that we haven't normally done on the Northland Sports Page in our 6+ years, we are all of about 3 minutes into the show. We've mentioned Star Search, Star Wars, Star Trek, and firefighters.
You know what we missed? Battlestar Galactica. That was another one of those at about the same time.
To quote Office Space, I wouldn't say I was missing it, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, we had that whole generation there of about 5 years where those three, Star Wars, Star Trek, and Battlestar Galactica, went head-to-head on TV.
Well, and the other thing, too, and I'm not sure if this is a great segue or not, but we've talked a lot about things that begin with star, and we're going to do that a lot today.
Yep.
And we also talked about fire and how the firefighters obviously do great things with that. But a sports cliche that's used a lot is teams, players, what have you, are on fire. Mm-hmm. And right now, I know we talked about this last week at the sauna event down in Endion Station, and thankfully those didn't catch fire at all, but that was a good time, and thank you to everybody that put us up there. Yeah, no doubt. But we talked about it in such a weird feeling of, the teams that we love are playing very, very well. Another week has gone by, and it's still true. They haven't lost yet. Now, both the Wolves and Twins will put that quote-unquote in jeopardy today because they both play, but this winning thing, I'm starting to not get used to it because I'm still a Minnesota fan, but I'm starting to enjoy it. and just kind of relax a little bit and enjoy the games when these teams play.
God, you're good, because for the most part, I'm wincing harder. Okay, now the damage hurts, Brian.
See, and I'm trying to not do that because I get it. Trust me. I feel like I wrote the book on that. Speaking of writing books, we'll talk about that later on when we go through the guest lineup today too. But it is finally kind of seeping into me that there is a defense mechanism of being a Minnesota sports fan that almost doesn't want to allow you to have any fun with any of this. And you hear about it with enough of the outside noise of, the Twins beat the Red Sox last night for 11 in a row. But when you look at their schedule, somebody will say, well, one of those wins is credible because 10 out of 11 came against the White Sox and Angels.
Yep.
And I get it. That's Major League Baseball's JV, essentially. But it's still difficult to win that many games in a row. And I'm just trying to block out the negativity, not to the point where I have rose-colored glasses on and I think, the Twins are going to hoist the World Series trophy at the end of the year and that the NBA Finals, the road goes through Minnesota. I'm not there yet, but I'm really trying to live in the moment because it's been forever since we've had moments like these.
Oh, I'm super excited, but, what happens? If they lose game one, do you know how they could beat Phoenix and they swept Phoenix, but that's great, but now they're facing a real team. We just know what it's going to be.
Well, and somebody will probably say that if and when that does happen. But here, instead of driving myself crazy about it, is going to be the mantra I'm going to try to adopt. Now, granted, the key word in this phrase is try. Doesn't mean I'm going to accomplish it at all.
Everybody who knows you is now wrapped listening to the radio.
Right. But there's part of me that if things go south, instead of, beating myself up about it or being just angry, there might be a little bit of, defeatist nature to it and go, yep. There's a little bit of normalcy to that. I'm enjoying the abnormal right now. How about that?
So if weird stuff happens, you're going to go on the deck with a pina colada in the sunset and go, man, that was a nice run.
Well, we talked about May the 4th. It's Cinco de Mayo tomorrow, so I might hit the deck with a margarita. I don't know so much about a pina colada. But I like getting caught in the rain. You can do that today.
We don't want you to hit the deck. Just sit out there. That would be one too many margaritas, I think.
Right. Well, don't threaten me with a good time. Speaking of a good time, we have a good time each and every Saturday here on the Northland Sports Page, thanks in large part to our great sponsors.
Absolutely. Let's start with Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. I believe they say heat and cool your house with Kraus.
Yes.
Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Kohler Hyundai and Kohler Toyota, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Mount Royal Bottle Shop, the Blackwoods Group, including their locations in Two Harbors and in Proctor, Tavern on the Hill, Blackwater Downtown, and on London Road. Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance, Hoops Brewing, and Arola Architecture Studio.
So very grateful for each and every one of our sponsors. We'll have the drawing line segment a little bit later. That's courtesy of Arola Architecture Studio. He will have a local tilt to his drawing line segment today. Jay Hagan will join us. Jay joins us quite a bit in July for a historical look at kind of how the military and sports intertwine a little bit. They've got a 5K too. It's going to be fun to talk a little bit about that.
And nothing says historical tilt than Jay Hagan.
Absolutely
right?
correct.
100%. That's
probably
our guy.
400%. No doubt about that. And then, of course, Dave Hoops, he'll be along about 10:45 today. He gave up his usual 10:30 slot because 10:30 I talked about writing a book. We're going to talk to a gentleman who's done that. Now, I don't know if he's going to be like Dan Cole, the common man, and every 2 minutes while he's on the air talk about, well, by the way, did you know I wrote a book? But LaVelle E, Neal III, who we love to talk sports with. Baseball, certainly number one with a bullet, but just sports is going to join us at 10:30. That will be fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the book and what went into it, the passion that goes into it. Writing a book is not simple, and so to actually get it and published and ready to go, I just think that's quite an accomplishment.
Well, and I also want to hear a little bit about kind of what we just bandied about in the open here of what's the barometer of emotion, because I'm trying to be a lot more positive about this because, again, the current results have given me no reason to be anything but history lurks in there too, and you're ready to get hurt again kind of thing. Well, it's a little different, in the North and in the South versus right in the Metro where things are happening, and especially being in the media and covering these teams and games like he does. I want to see what the barometer is amongst the folks that have been right in the thick of some of this pain before because, again, things are going very, very well.
Well, and right in the middle of this vacuum of success, like you said, and LaVelle is able to step back enough to know if this is paper success or if there's really something there. And with the Wolves, there's really something there, right? Would it surprise you if they beat Denver? Not at all. Would it surprise you last year if they beat Denver?
4,000%.
Completely. And so the fact that we're there says that there's a little something in this team.
Right. And the difference is in the prelude to all of this, I think, is, the Phoenix matchup, we all knew what the regular season results were against the Suns. And there was a lot of woe is me before that even started. and boy, the tables turned in that. Denver and Minnesota play some dynamite regular season matchups. Now the prelude, all you hear is all this fountain of positivity about the Timberwolves, and I love it, but it's weird. It's a strange feeling because I'm of the belief that they can certainly not only have the ability to win this series, but I think they're going to. And it's just strange to feel that way.
I think the funniest thing I heard was the Timberwolves' chances of winning this series went drastically up when they took all the curtains away from the brick walls.
There you go.
As soon as McDaniels doesn't swing at a curtain and hit a brick wall and blow his hand up,
and Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson are getting along,
right?
Everything's fine.
They got a shot because the one guy who can guard their guard is Jalen.
And I think a lot of our local listening audience probably feels that same positivity about the Wolves. Speaking of local connections to the Wolves, we ran through who's going to be on the show today. We left one guy out, and I don't want to do that anymore because at the top of the hour at 11:05-ish, we're going to talk to Rick Rickard, former Timberwolves draft choice. He's not local in terms of residency anymore, but he's our local tie to the Timberwolves and to the NBA. He's excited to talk about the postseason again.
Yeah, no, he's not, like you said, he knows the Timberwolves, and he knows we're going to ask him about it, so he's following them, but he also sees the NBA from a bigger picture. And frankly, with all the Wolves love, we really haven't followed the East. And so it'll be fun to talk about, all those things too.
So again, our big lineup today, 10:30. LaVelle E. Neal III of the Star Tribune, 10:45-ish. Dave Hoops, 11:05. Rick Rickard, 11:25. We'll play some buy or sell, and we will close the show with the historian himself, Jay Hagan. So that'll be fun. And again, we talked about Timberwolves game 1 is today. The Twins will go for 12 in a row about 1 o'clock this afternoon. It is Pablo Day at Target Field. And then, of course, it is Kentucky Derby weekend as well, Kentucky Derby Day today. So that's going to play into our opening topic. But before we get into the opening topic, not all heroes wear capes. We talked about firefighters earlier. You had a bit of a hero, a canine one, right in your house this morning. Well, enlighten us.
And the canine one really thinks he's a hero now for sure.
Well, and from the story, he kind of is.
Yeah, so we have got a new little addition to our house. Not that little, but we have a new dog addition. And it was time for Bella to go to the bathroom at about 4:30 in the morning, and she got to the top of the stairs and started to whine. Well, Frankie, my 9-year-old German Shepherd, he comes out and he looks, and he doesn't really stop. He comes tearing down the stairs, all teeth and spit. And the bear jumped back over the fence and ran away.
Well, let's just say a bear, because the bear makes it sound like you own one. You don't. There was a bear deciding to take up residency in your backyard.
Yep. So Frankie came. The bear ran, and Frankie came back up the stairs like, "Yep, my backyard.
Took care of that.
Yep. All right, you little one, go ahead and use the bathroom. I got you." It was really kind of funny, and he did strut through the house. It was really comical.
So at least for the day, Frankie is certainly a superstar.
Yep.
And that's kind of the play into our opening topic today. And again, it's Kentucky Derby Day, and that means a lot to me. Now, Dave Cook's big event has long been the NFL draft, and this year with the Vikings trying to do what we hope is a franchise-altering draft, it roped me in. We had a great time with a special last Sunday. We had a great time with call-ins from local viewpoints, what have you. You successfully roped me into your event, at least for this year. I don't know if I'll ever rope you into the Kentucky Derby, and that's completely fine. But I've always had a good time playing with horse racing terminology and relating it to other sports that we enjoy. So I think annually on this show, we've done something win, place, show, which of course is very much the betting terms in horse racing on Kentucky Derby weekend. We're going to do that again today, but it's a little bit different spin. And this might either be really hard or really easy, but my hope is really fun because again, we've talked about Star Wars, Star Trek, Star Search, and superstars today so far in the opening 12 minutes. Anthony Edwards is becoming a superstar, not just here, because I think here he's been there for a while.
Yep.
The national attention is a little bit awe-striking and maybe a little bit anxiety-inducing because, Paul Allen calls us the cornfields. We always assume, well, we're the market nobody notices. Well, in the case of Anthony Edwards, not the case anymore at all.
Right.
So what we're going to talk about today, and stick with us on this because we're going to have to probably stick with each other as we formulate a list together. We're going to try to come to agreement and do it. What we're going to do with each of the major sports franchises, we're going to talk about the win, place, and show, a.k.a. the top 3 superstars to play for our favorite Minnesota teams, but in the eyes of the nation, in our opinion.
Right.
And what we mean by that is, for you and I think Tony Campbell will always be a bit of a star in Timberwolves lore. On the national circles, not so much.
Yeah, no, they'll ask about the soup.
We can talk about Kirby Puckett, and did he get the credit he deserves? Sort of. I think he's going to make the list, but he is where Twins discussions for me start and end locally. Yep. Nationally, I don't think they do. we've also had big names with cups of coffee with our teams. I think Jim Thome might get into this discussion somehow. He was, as you've said, Paul Bunyan for a year. You brought up Steve Carlton. Steve Carlton is kind of the butt of a joke because he won, one game, maybe two as a Minnesota Twin. I think it was one.
Yep.
But might be the biggest national superstar to put on a Twins uniform in terms of the game of baseball overall. So this is going to be fun, but it may not be the biggest superstar in Minnesota. It's just the biggest superstar to happen to stop here.
Right. It may not be the ones that come to mind right away. Right.
All right. So I think we want to do this 3, 2, and 1, which of course that's going to be hard for me to realize how to say it the right way. Show, place, win.
Yeah.
And then I'll let you, 1 for 1 today. Should we stop the show? Stop the count. But at any rate, where do you want to begin in terms of sport and franchise?
Well, the hardest one is hockey. We've talked about that being the most difficult one. So why don't we start there and see if we can't get that one? It'll be a good example anyway.
I think that is the toughest one. I completely agree with you. The first two names, obviously, that popped in my head were, wow, there's really only one time that the Minnesota Wild had the attention of, you can't say Hockey Nation because there's several nations involved in NHL love, maybe more so than any other sport. NBA maybe a close second, but I thought of the Parise-Suter 4th of July, and I thought Suter maybe not as much, but Parise's got to be on this list somewhere. So I'm not sure if he's a show or a place, but I didn't have Parise at the top. I think my top guy is still on this team, but really? I had Parise somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, my top star is a North Star.
Okay. I didn't factor that in. I only went Wild.
Yeah, I think Broughton's
if you do that,
one.
Well, and see now if you factor in the North Stars, I think Modano's in there.
Modano is in there.
Okay.
But I think Broughton is because he came with the Olympics, right?
Right.
And he was a star on the Olympic team. And when he came, I mean, he went from and this has got a little local twist to it, right? So there's like he was the best player in high school hockey. He was the best player for the Gophers. He was one of the best players for the Olympic team, and he stepped right on the ice with the North Stars, and everybody knew who he was nationally. So I think he's in this mix too.
Okay, I think that's a fair point. And I'll admit that I didn't do enough crossover. I didn't factor in the North Stars, and I certainly should have because I certainly grew up watching them. The Al Shaver recent passing hit me just as hard as, any other Minnesota sports figure passing would. But I had Parise.
Passing would.
Would. Wood.
That sounds like a fiber problem.
Yes. I was going to say, passing wood sounds horribly uncomfortable. I don't know if even the firefighters can help me with that one.
Right.
But so I had Parise as my show. I think he's in third.
And I think the combo of those two could almost be taken as one thing.
It could.
You know what I mean?
It could. And then with the North Stars crossover brought in, I guess I'm going to bump who was my top guy, who I said was still on this team, because Marc-Andre Fleury gets talked about at length everywhere and has played plenty of places. I think he's the biggest name that just happens to be on Minnesota right now.
I don't think you can bump it.
So I'm going to put him in the place at 2. Yeah. I had him at 1, but with the North Stars crossover, you made your Broughton point. I'm willing to hear that. I'll put Modano in my 1 spot, but we're doing a collaborative list, so how do you want to do it?
Well, I think the rules of the game are the superstars that came through, right?
Right.
And so...
But remember, these are superstars that the nation took note of, not Minnesota fans.
Right. So Fleury might be the answer here.
Yeah.
Because it's the national view. Everybody in hockey around the world kind of knows Marc-Andre Fleury.
And does legacy hurt the idea for Neal Broughton? Because when we look at it now, if you say Mike Modano, there are people of all ages that still know exactly who that is. You say Neal Broughton, I think they got to research a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the definition of a superstar.
Right.
All right, so let's go Fleury 1.
Okay.
I think we can go Modano.
Fleury is our win. Modano's our place in our show. Parise-Suter tie?
Yeah, I think so, because they are tied.
Okay.
Right? They're tied together. They will always be tied together. And so I think that we can combine that combination of players.
Okay. So we got the hockey one out of the way. We did it the right HR way. We took the difficult path first.
Yes.
Where do you want to go next?
Well, let's see. Who's the 2 teams that are playing? Let's do them last. So let's go to the Vikings.
All right.
This one should be the simplest.
But I don't think it is because of where do you rank them? Because we talked about, Randy Moss took the world by storm, and he absolutely did. And he was talked about a lot as a draftee who fell. I think he's a big deal. The fact that they had Brett Favre on the team is probably the top guy for sure.
Herschel. Everybody knew who Herschel was.
Yeah, I mean,
his reputation here isn't great, but nationally, Herschel was a big deal.
I think you're right. I think Adrian Peterson needs to be in this conversation somewhere. And I think I need to kind of admit my youth here, and I need to ask you, even though you're only slightly over a decade older than me, none of the Purple People Eaters came up when we initially talked about this. But when the Vikings were making a Super Bowl every other year or somewhere in there, are the Carl Ellers, Alan Pages, were they talked about nationally enough or no?
Yes, but they were talked as a group, right? The
Okay.
Purple People Eaters were famous.
So do we put them as a show altogether?
Maybe, but we got to include like Tarkington in here.
Fran Tarkenton?
Yep.
Yeah,
Like
and that's what I wondered. You know, I was not around when he was playing, and he left the game as the top of the heap with every statistical list for quarterbacks. He had to be a huge deal at some point.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you.
Okay.
Ed Marinaro.
Yeah?
And Ed Marinaro was a first-round draft pick by the Minnesota Vikings, and he was a running back, and he lasted a few years. But he was also a star on Hill Street Blues,
Right.
right? So his superstardom came after football. But if that's the rule we're playing by, you know, he's a pretty big deal.
Well, and the Vikings had plenty of stars as you look back. We talked about legacy when we talked about hockey, but I feel like a lot of these guys, we were fighting for him, saying, hey, this guy deserves to be in the spotlight. And then after the fact, people went, oh, yeah, you're probably right. Because I want to put Chris Carter on there. I don't think the nation showed him enough respect along the way.
No, I agree, but how about Warren Moon?
Yeah.
I mean, Warren Moon is somebody that internationally would be known.
How about a guy that didn't do hardly squat here unless you're Eric Gulliford, but nationally everybody knew Jim McMahon was a Viking.
That's true. That's actually very true.
That's more of a, are we doing superstar or are we doing cultural icon? And then you could go a step further. Are they different or not?
Right.
Exactly.
I'm not sure
we
those
hang
are
out too
different.
much. You're finishing my sentences.
Well, I think let's do this. I think number one is easy. I think number one is Favre.
Okay.
I think that nationally he is. I mean, Moss is revered, but Brett Favre is the definition of superstar.
Is Moss in this mix though? Because, you know, he came of age with the Vikings, if you will, and then I think he got a lot more pub when he was a Patriot and everywhere else.
I disagree with you. I think that the Moss band hit the road as a Viking. Like he hit the national spotlight as a Viking.
Yep.
And
So he's in here somewhere.
I think so. My question is going to be, like, does Herschel fit here? Is Warren Moon in that? Is Adrian in that? Because again, Adrian had all the records,
Yes.
right? And so nationally, he was celebrated.
And is it strictly on the field? Because you and I talked about this a few days ago, and I'm sure there are people screaming at their radios, well, Alan Page is a Supreme Court justice or whatever the case may be. You know, I don't think he was a Supreme Court justice. I think I may have gotten that.
Minnesota Supreme Court
Yes,
justice.
that's okay. That's what I meant.
Yep.
When I say Supreme Court justice, I'm thinking Washington, D.C., and I know that's not right. But is this just an on-field legacy? We're not counting what else he did with your life.
The problem is we went
because
national.
we could put Randy Moss even higher because he's probably a bigger deal now to some young kids because of his analyst work.
Right. We went national. See,
Yeah.
if it was state, Alan Page is number one.
Yeah.
And frankly, Randall McDaniel might be number two.
But that's a different discussion for a different time because that might be more fun. Future Kentucky Derby weekends. Who's the most revered in the state itself?
Yeah. So, and as you were talking, Herschel Walker was a bobsledder for the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough to not say the number 3 overall superstar for Minnesota Vikings is Herschel.
Even though he's the biggest detriment to some in franchise history.
He may not have been that guy here. He was the face of the USFL. He was the best college football player in history.
And this is about national attention that happened to be in Minnesota
The
because
US bobsled
when the nation
guy.
puts the spotlight on us, we don't know what to do.
Yep.
And all of this stems from that's what they're doing with Anthony Edwards right now.
I'm going to say Herschel is 3. So
I
I'm going to
agree.
go Favre, Moss,
Yep.
Herschel.
All right, so that's our list for the Vikings. So we wanted to do the 2 that we're playing. The Wolves have game 1 today. Do you want to save them for last?
Yep. Let's go with the
All right, so
11 win in a row team.
The Twins is difficult.
Nationally.
Because Kirby was a big deal. But Kirby was one of those guys that we had to be the kids in the corner going, don't forget about him, don't forget about him. Because how many times have I said, if Wade Boggs didn't exist, Kirby's got probably more batting titles than Joe Mauer.
Yep.
If Jose Canseco and that crew didn't exist, Kirby should have at least won 1 MVP.
Yep. So I'm going to bring out one that I don't think wins this.
Okay.
But using our parameters probably should be.
Okay.
Jim Cott. Now, Jim Cott was a superstar.
Because is he better known with the Yankee system now and the Yankee broadcaster and all that good
Yes,
stuff?
but he was a superstar.
I just said Yankees and good stuff in the same sentence, by the way.
He was a superstar here, right?
Yeah.
And when he left, he was really good for a while, but then he became a 15-year bullpen guy, right? So his star as a player, was peaked and then went down, right? He was the quick pitch guy at the end of his career. But yeah, then he became a broadcaster here, and then he became a national broadcaster.
Right.
So, but it's been long enough that I'm not sure everybody listening would agree that Jim Cott should be on here. But I'll make. But
I think he's worthy of consideration. I think you're right.
The argument.
And then I think there's a slew of guys that made cameos here because it was part of a homecoming. Jack Morris, we all know what he did in the one season here. Can't do much better, obviously. But I wonder if he's a superstar in the eyes of the nation anywhere. Now, he did great things in Detroit, Toronto, what have you. I don't know if he makes it either. Dave Winfield is a mammoth name.
Yep.
He was here for a minute. Paul Molitor is a mammoth name, but really...
I don't think he's at Winfield's level, though.
No, I don't either, and here's why. Because I think he made his name as a Brewer. But until he did good things with the Blue Jays and good things with the Twins... You're kind of dealing in all three of those instances with markets that probably don't get enough attention.
Yep.
In all three cases.
And I think Molly and Morris to a lesser extent and Winfield are revered here because Morris wasn't a Gopher, but the other two were, and they led him to near national championships.
And then again, Tomey did amazing things here, very, very briefly. Did amazing things a lot of places. People don't think of him as a Twin. We do because we cling to that stuff. But
Nelson Cruz may have gotten in the Hall of Fame for 2 years in Minnesota. Like his 2 years in Minnesota wasn't just home runs, right? It was leadership. It was all the things. And the Bomba squad was Nelson Cruz and other guys that followed him, right? So he became Mama Duck here. And so he may hit the Hall of Fame.
I'm sure he'd love to hear that.
Well, he probably would agree, by the way.
Right.
So, yeah, it's tough. Killebrew was a national.
And I wondered that one because, again, there are almost mythical creatures in my lifetime when it comes to the Twins, and their names are Killebrew, Carew, and Oliva. Now, I've seen all of them in my life, but well after they played. But is it or isn't it? I think of Killebrew, and I think of Major League Baseball's logo, and supposedly that could and maybe is him.
Killebrew, when he played, was Paul Bunyan, right?
Yeah.
Carew was,
I've read his biography. It's outstanding.
Carew was a national. Yeah, his coming to age in baseball, people don't. It's just not done that way anymore. Carew was a national level baseball player, but I don't know if that means superstar.
And we know Oliva's not on it because why did it take so long to get him into the Hall of Fame? Why did we champion it for so long?
Right.
He would be, like we said, we discovered today that maybe a fun topic down the road would be most revered within the state. Oliva's on that list.
Don Baylor. I mean, he, again,
here for a minute, but was a huge name.
Baseball superstar, not sure superstar, right? You know what I mean? Tom Kelly was known nationally because of his quirkiness and 2 World Series.
But he became one here.
Yes.
And he was known because he started he was 36 years old. He looked like he was 50 the entire time.
Yeah.
But he was 36 when he began with the Twins.
Yep. And so I think, goodness gracious, the Twins haven't had a lot of guys who have gone on to national stardom.
The Twins have just never been in the national spotlight. You could argue even the 2 years that they won it, people were like, oh, the worst to first Atlanta series is legendary now. But even that 87 series, it was like they were patting us on the head waiting for the Cardinals to kick the tar out of us.
Yep.
And because Jack Clark and whoever else couldn't play, Terry Pendleton could barely play, but Jack Clark didn't play, it didn't happen.
So does Blyleven fall on this list? Because he was he might be a Minnesota.
It depends on how well known he was with his other spots, the Pirates, the Angels, Cleveland. I think
he's known pretty well in Pittsburgh.
Did Johan do enough here to really be a star here, or did it all happen when he went to the Mets?
Johan was a star here.
Right, but did he become more of a superstar name because he went to New York after that? He didn't do anything with the Mets, but it was a bigger deal when you're in New York.
He got hurt so fast. I think he's an afterthought in New York.
I think he's an afterthought in general because you could make Hall of Fame cases for him and nobody will hear of it.
Yeah, he's got the Sandy Koufax, should be in the Hall of Fame, right? All right,
so we need a list because we've got 1 minute to do the Wolves, by the way.
Oh,
it's 10:29.
All right, so Twins, I'm going to go Cott, I'll go Killebrew and Puckett, and I don't know in what order.
All right, I can respect that. I think we leave it in that order. I think it's place.
Yep, show and win.
Show, place, and win.
Yep.
So that makes perfect sense to me. So the Wolves in 60 seconds. We didn't plan on that at all.
No, but the first 2 are easy.
Well, and I think we can address this with Rick a little after 11 as well. It is Ant and Garnett are the top 2. It's just a matter of where you put them now. Now, Garnett's career resume is much better because there's much more experience to it. But KG was the first of his kind being drafted out of high school, and that got attention in its own right. We know that. I don't remember KG, and granted, positionally it's different. I don't remember KG being said to be the next Jordan or anything like that. And then KG, partway into his career, kind of got patted on the head because you're good and you're getting a bad franchise to the playoffs and you're doing nothing when you get there.
And then you became a superstar.
Right.
Okay.
When you got to Boston, you were a huge deal.
So who's the guard that played for Detroit after us, and he wasn't great?
Chauncey Billups?
Yes. Chauncey Billups might be on there too, because nationally he's known pretty well now, and he was a cup of coffee here and he turned his career around here.
I think Steph is in the third spot because
I think Rubio is.
Because of the Olympic piece. That's a great take, because I think more and more people knew who Ricky Rubio was because of what he did on the Olympic stage versus anything he did in the NBA. Otherwise, I would say Steph, because everywhere Steph went was a big deal, and he wasn't really here that long at all.
And they're both probably better known internationally than they are in the NBA, because Steph owns China.
All right, so how do you want to do it?
Well,
do you put Steph and Rubio in a tie in the place spot or in the show spot?
Sure, because Garnett's 1, Ant's 2.
Okay, so the win is Garnett, the place is Ant, and the show is a tie between Starbury and Ricky.
Yep, and in 5 years, let's do this again, and we'll probably end up changing the first 2.
Good, because in 5 years we'll have more time to think about it, and it might come out a little more smoothly.
And we'll be celebrating our 12th anniversary.
Right. Well, and how many championships will the Wolves have by then? Maybe that's the better question.
Oh my gosh, how about that for a statement?
So the first in our superstar lineup today is LaVelle E. Neal. We're going to call him very shortly. Stick around. It's the Northland Sports Page. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook. Kentucky Derby weekend, May the 4th. Whatever. Stick around. We'll be right back. You know what that means. Welcome back to the Northland Sports Page. It's time for LaVelle E. Neal III, Star Tribune columnist.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Former Twins beat writer. We used to talk so much Twins with them, and we still will, but I love the Star Tribune columnist piece because it opens up the wide array of topics, and we hope he's ready for everything today because we've got a lot to talk to him about.
And he has a new title. I mean, go ahead and let him. Yes.
Author LaVelle E. Neal III. We will get to that as well. We may let him guide us. Where does he want to start with the myriad of topics and a lot of positivity in Minnesota,
and Chicago right now, except
the
baseball team maybe.
Well, it depends on which one. The Cubs are playing well. The South Side, if it goes further south, I don't know what they can do.
And
but
the football team's going to be fun to talk about.
There is that. Speaking of fun to talk to, that is LaVelle E. Neal III, most certainly. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good to hear from you.
Very good to talk to you. Where would you like to start? Because we got Wolves positivity, we got Twins positivity, we got NFL draft. You've got a book. Where do you want to go with this? There's so many avenues to explore.
Well, I think the A topic right now is the Minnesota Timberwolves as they open a series. Endeavor tonight at 6 o'clock on TNT. And a lot of people believe that this is the de facto Western Conference Finals, that these are their 2 best teams in the conference. And whoever wins this has a really good chance to go into the NBA Finals. I'm not ready to go that far yet because I want to give props to Oklahoma City because they are a fine team too that plays defense almost as well as the Wolves do. So we can't get too far ahead on that one, but it should be a fascinating series. And I think there's matchup problems that the Nuggets are going to face with trying to deal with the Wolves. The fact that they could put Karl-Anthony Towns on Jokic is a big factor here. Jokic is going to get his. He's probably going to win 2 games just by himself. The key is to stop him from the 35-point, 18 rebound, 14 assist night, in which he's got everybody flowing and scoring. But to me, he's like the most dangerous person in the NBA. It reminds me like Alexander Ovechkin in hockey. When he sets up at that left face-off circle, he's about to do some damage there. When Jokic is at the top of the key or at the free throw line, you're either going to get shot, stabbed, or hung. He's either going to hit someone, streak into the basket for a dunk. He's either going to take 2 big steps, drive to the hoop, look awkward while doing it, but still score while getting fouled. Or he's going to shoot that behind-the-head jump shot that's hard to stop. To me, he's such a difficult player to face. The key is going to have to shut down the other guys. And I think Jamal Murray, who's not 100%, is going to have problems because they're going to put Jaden McDaniels on him and they're going to put Nickeil Alexander-Walker off the bench or maybe Slow-Mo on him too. And he's not 100%, and he could be neutralized. If that happens, then Denver's in a little bit of trouble here. So I've got the Wolves winning in 6. I initially said 7, but 7 means they'd have to go back to Denver for Game 7. I would not like their chances in that. So I'm going Wolves in 6. in a slugfest. It's going to be a heavyweight fight in which teams get knocked down, have to get back up and keep punching. But I expect the Wolves to go to the Western Conference Finals.
I love that prediction. I also love some of the things that you said about Jokic because you mentioned all of the things he can do, and it might look a little awkward as he does it because, Dave, you used to say that you like James Harden because he was the guy when you watched him play. It looked more like his game belonged at the Y. I think that's Jokic. You watch him and it's like, wow, this is clunky. This is the guy wearing a headband and too many wristbands at the Y, but P.S. he's dominating you.
Yep.
LaVelle, the best take I thought you had in the whole thing was the key is going to be stopping the role players. I think Jamal Murray's going to get his too, and Jokic obviously will, but the Wolves just can't get beat by the Porter Juniors, the Gordons on this Denver team.
No, they can't. They can't. It's almost like it's in a way it's like dealing with the Bulls when facing the Michael Jordan teams. If you just let Jordan score 40 and shut down Charles Oakley and the rest of the bunch, you're going to win, at least until they figure out how to beat the Pistons and go to the finals. That is, but no, I agree. Like I said, Murray's at 100%, and I think that could become a factor as the series goes deeper. So I'm curious to see how he looks today in Game 1.
Well, and then the matchup problems that the Wolves do present for just about everybody. Their depth is great, and the way they utilize it is great, too. We talked about the Wolves can't get beat by some of these role players. If you're the Nuggets, what are they thinking? Because they got to be thinking, well, Ant's going to get his, probably Towns, too. But Jaden's been an offensive factor despite being, more known for a shutdown player in these series. Rudy's been as good as he's been. Mike Conley is the best teammate, literally, according to NBA awards, if you will. The Wolves have weapons coming out their ears, and we're not used to saying that.
Nickeil Alexander-Walker was considered an afterthought when he was part of the deal to bring him to town, and he has become a good role player who can D up and score a little bit. I got one person telling me that he should be the point guard when Conley decides to stop playing. I'm not ready to go that far.
I heard it on the mothership yesterday. I heard it.
I'm not ready to go that far yet with him, but he definitely has carved out a role for him. And, I think Phoenix had all kinds of problems with the Wolves' depth in the series, especially when Grayson Allen got injured and they had to fill in for him. Their bench really got thin, and the Wolves outplayed them consistently in that 4-game sweep. I can see the bench playing a big role here in this series as well, because Finchy can go 9 deep if he needs to get things done. And a lot of teams can't say that in the postseason.
Absolutely correct, Dave. I'm going to pitch it to you, but since LaVelle brought up the person who thinks that Nah should be the starting point guard for this team, shout out to Max Fuller. I enjoy a lot of his takes on the mothership, but that wasn't one I was with. Go ahead.
So I think maybe the most valuable player for this series is whichever custodian decided to move all the drapes away from the brick walls. Because if McDaniels plays to the level what we think he can, LaVelle, I think he is probably the difference maker in here because he can guard everybody on the floor, including Jokic, if Jokic has one of those games where he's quick.
We also have to find out who's the guy with the Phoenix Suns that bribed Devin Booker to hip check Mike Conley into Coach Finch to lead to the knee surgery. Maybe the Nuggets funnel some money to Booker. We know you're making $20 million, but here's another $100,000. Make sure that we can hurt the Wolves somewhere, somehow, when they go into the next series. So I'm curious to see where Finch is going to coach the game from tonight. I saw a picture a beat writer took, Chris Hine, in Denver. The whole staff was huddled around a certain area of the bench, trying to figure out a place where Finch could sit during the game and coach the team. So I'm curious to see what they come up with here on the fly. This is a rather unique situation. And if I'm the Wolves, I would move 2 chairs, the 2 chairs that are next to the scoring table. I build an extension to the table and put Finch right there so he's protected by something while he can coach the team. But, that's just me talking.
I agree with you 100%, but we talk about the Wolves' depth, and they've actually, because of this injury and this talk of Chris Finch and, how's that knee going to be and how's the situation on the bench going to look. The situation on the bench also showed off some depth for the Timberwolves. Now, I know a lot of fans know him because he's become the face of a lot of halftime interviews on televised games, but, Mike Inori's become a big deal, and NBA coaching vacancies are going to be there. Is this playoff run maybe the last we're going to see of Mike Inori as part of the Timberwolves? I think he's going to be a hot candidate.
You know what? I think the recycled retreads have been used up. I believe. Which former coach that's going to be out there is looking to get back in. Unless it's like Ryan Saunders or someone like that. So So that's a good question. I would say this, though. If the Lakers call with Michael Nori, if I was him, I'd stay away from that situation.
Right.
That's a no-win situation. Darvin Ham he walked into a no-win situation there with a poorly constructed roster by the GM, who used to be an agent, and the de facto GM in LeBron, and then having to deal with load management during the season for him, trying to make sure AD doesn't break down, and trying to figure out how he can get D'Lo to play consistently. And that challenge in itself is the biggest one that the Wolves can never figure out. So I'd leave LA alone. But if there's some other gigs opening up, Phoenix could be a possibility. That's another tough situation because they're cap tied for several years to come, and they got aging guys. Durant's like 35 now. So I don't know. That'd be a good situation. But everybody wants to become a head coach, and hey, let's face it. You sign a contract for like 5 years. In the NBA, you're going to get, $6-7 million a year. And if you get fired, so what? You still get cash, So
Good point.
Maybe Mike should just pick up the phone whenever someone calls and take a job somewhere because financially it's worth it.
All right, so you brought up some challenges, obviously, with coaching in the NBA. I want to ask you, what's the bigger challenge? Writing an entire book, even as a seasoned writer, as a columnist like you are, or playing, say, Program Password Under Pressure on Common Man's show, and segueing off the book, are you going to become like Common? And now that the book is done and going to be out soon, every time you hit a microphone, are you going to, organically say, by the way, did you know I wrote a book? And tell us about it because I'm excited about it.
No, Program Password was not that difficult. It's the initials game that gets me. That's the one.
Yes.
I've had a tough one on the 3 times I've been on. So, but I spent last year writing a book on the history of the Twins. It's called The Franchise, Minnesota Twins. It's part of a national chain of books by Triumph Books. They did one of these with the Yankees. They did one on the Red Sox. They did one on Alabama football. I saw a Cubs one just came out. And I just noticed a New York Rangers franchise book is out as well. So it's just a national series of coffee table books. And they approached me in February of last year. I pretty much spent the summer writing it. Pretty much moved in. I spent my weekends at the Minnesota Historical Center, which is a pretty cool spot in downtown St. Paul. I would recommend people who are history buffs to kind of check out. So, it dominated my summer. I think I golfed once all last year, and that was in a charity golf tournament because I was busy working on the book. Don't know if I'd ever do it again. They asked me to write 80,000 words. I called a week before the deadline and said, well, I've got you 80,000 words, but I'm not done with the book yet. And they said, okay, I got an extension. I ended up handing them 93,000 words.
Wow.
So, and it's just, it's a bunch of essays that go back to the early days of the franchise. The first time people started talking about we need to get a Major League Baseball team here was like 1952. And it took them like 9 years before the Twins could finally get to Minnesota. So that in and of itself was interesting to me. And I did chapters on the 87 team and the 91 team. Did chapters on individuals everywhere from Kirby Puckett to Jim Cott to Ken Herbeck and all the St. Paul guys who have made it in the majors. A book on the 2020 season because I was just infatuated with that unique year in sports. It's a year we don't want to go through again, but from a baseball-wise, dealing with social justice and coronavirus just made it for even more trickier. I did a chapter on the contraction year.
Sure.
That was an interesting chapter in Twins history, and that allowed me to basically make the contraction chapter a Carpola chapter, how he navigated that and how people felt about him and his antics about trying to get stadiums through the years. And I used the coming to Minnesota chapter to write about Calvin Griffith. So and I also did a chapter on all 3 stadiums. The old Met.
Nice.
I did not know this. Fun fact from the book. Tim Laudner was in the stands in the Met the day they had the bomb threat. They had to evacuate the stands. They were playing the Red Sox, and a bunch of fans did leave the stadium. The other group of fans went onto the field and started mingling with players. And I think we had a picture of fans like shaking Kari Yastrzemski's hand or something like that while they were trying to wait out this bomb threat. So there were some funny stories there, and the juiciest stories come when we get into the 80s and 90s and 2000s when I was around and covering the team. So I kind of used my institutional knowledge to kind of highlight those periods as well. So It's a great book. It's a good read. I'm not trying to win a Pulitzer, just trying to be factual and entertaining as possible. So you can pre-order it now on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. I just discovered yesterday that Barnes & Noble also has it. You could pre-order now. June 11th is the drop date, just in time for Father's Day.
Yeah.
And I would be willing to come if I can get commitment to that. I can sell 50 books. I'd come to Duluth for a signing. So
yeah, we will do our best to make that happen. I also want to know, is an audio version available? Are people going to have this read to them by the Velvet Tones of LaVelle E. Neal III?
In French.
Ooh. Oui. Apparently. Speaking of the history of the Twins, go ahead.
I said the book's also available for Kindle, and an ebook is also available too. So whatever platform you like to use to read, it's available.
Sounds wonderful. Speaking of the history of the Twins, I want to close with them as a topic, of course, because LaVelle, 2 weeks ago, a lot of the fan base was willing to call the Twins history, if you will, for this season. What changed minus playing Major League Baseball's JV teams and the Angels and White Sox? Because baseball is very much a watch-your-own bobber sport, and this team just looks different. What, in your mind, changed so significantly?
Well, the one thing that was refreshing to me from last night's game is that they carried what they picked up on that road trip into the Boston game, was that they're taking more competitive at bats, in my opinion. They were having 14, 15 strikeout games early in the season. They weren't drawing any walks. And I think they finally remembered that teams are going to avoid throwing them fastballs because they're going to crush, And so teams hide the fastball. They got to lay off the breaking stuff that's dropping out of the zone or just a little bit off the plate and get into better hitters counts. And I think collectively they've done a better job of that. They're actually, I think it's been twice this year they've had games in which they walk more than they struck out, but they're starting to balance out that. It's not that many, not that big of a difference now between walks and strikeouts in a lot of these games. And I just see a better approach to the plate. Brian Jeffers, hitting at nearly an all-star level has helped. Julian, is an intriguing player because he walks a lot and he strikes out a lot and he hits a few homers. But he's still effective. Kirilloff has been contributed. Larnach looks better than he did a year ago. So I think they started finding their footing offensively, and I think that really helped. It also helps that they have a really good bullpen. And my hypothesis, I want to see this happen. It actually kind of happened yesterday. But if the Twins are leading after 5, I'm almost thinking that the game's over. That's how highly I think of this bullpen right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. I heard reference to the Kansas City Royals World Series winning year yesterday on the Mothership. Speaking of yesterday with you on the Mothership, I got to do what they do and give you 2 segments at some point because we are almost out of time already. So I'll close with this. The Bears draft, it certainly looks good on paper. I still think it's going to take a year or 2, maybe more, for this team to be a legitimate factor. But what does the ultimate Bears fan that I know think right now?
I expect them to make the playoffs next year.
Wow.
I think the defense.
You just went Mike Tice on the bit. Go ahead.
Well, the last 10 weeks of the season last year, the Bears were a top 5 defense, and that's after getting Montez Sweat. And now they got offensive weapons all over the place. Now, I do think that J.J. McCarthy's in a more comfortable spot as a rookie than Caleb Williams, because Williams has to come right in and be the man right away. But all he has to do is be functional. And this team is going to I see 10 wins. I see a 10-7 record, and I think you can make the playoffs in that with a 10-7 record.
That makes the NFC Central, or the NFC North, the second best division in football behind the AFC North? If the Bears are like that?
It could be because you got the Lions, and the Packers are no slouch. I don't know what the Vikings are going to do. I think the over-under in Vegas for the Vikings was a 6.5, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. So I think they're going to need a year to retool a little bit here. I mean, Sam Darnold's not going to light it up.
No, I don't think so either, but I think both the Vikings and Bears have proven zero at quarterback right now, so we will certainly see. One thing I hope to see more of is you, LaVelle. Let's continue negotiating, if you will, or at least working towards getting you up in Duluth, and let's hopefully talk again soon because there's so much more I could talk to you about. We could do this for days.
Absolutely. We could do it live at the book signing.
Yes, that is the next step. You keep texting me. It was ironic on Sunday. I swear your ears were burning because I was about to text you, and there you were. So please, let's talk soon. We'll get some things put together.
Thanks, LaVelle.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
All right, that's our guy, LaVelle E. Neal III. Man, I love that. Star Tribune columnist who we could talk to about anything.
Yeah, no, and fun doing it, right?
Yes.
It's not just flexing knowledge, it is enjoying.
You know what that sounds like? Somebody we can talk to about anything and fun doing it? Dave Hoops. He's next. We are the Northland Sports Page. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Back here on the Northland Sports Page, Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook. That, of course, is Prince, a little raspberry beret. Raspberry wheat is probably my favorite at Hoops Brewing. I say probably because Christmas time, when cherry ale is available, life is just different. But raspberry wheat, I've been known to influence a few people to get them to try it. Did that with our boss, Nick Stoltman, last weekend, and he enjoyed it, to say the least. And our buddy, John Carlson, not only enjoyed it, but sent me photo evidence last night that he went out to purchase some. So, you make an impression once in a while, just like Dave Hoops has on us.
Well, absolutely, Brian. Making that purchase outside of the brewery is a plus.
And here's the best thing: he did it at Mount Royal Bottle Shop. Hoops Brewing, Mount Royal Bottle Shop. Those are two of our great sponsors. Dave Cook has the rest.
And let's start right there. Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Krause Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. At Christensen Group Insurance, the Blackwoods Group, including their locations on London Road, Blackwater downtown, Tavern on the Hill, in Proctor and in Two Harbors, Arola Architecture Studio, and Hoops Brewing.
Hoops Brewing, let's go to the man behind all of the great things that is Hoops Brewing. Dave Hoops is with us. Dave, good morning, sir. And by the way, we were just talking to LaVelle E, Neal III, who wants to get up to Duluth and do some things live with us. I think Hoops Brewing, if we could do it, would be a great place for him to do that. But speaking of seeing people live, it was a major pleasure to do that with you last week. And good morning again.
Good morning. Yeah, that was super fun. And it looks like they ended up having a pretty successful sauna day, which I contributed. I went home and took one myself.
Nice.
That was fun.
See, now I contributed in a different way, because when I left the event, I went to your establishment and I had a group, I think there were 8 of us, and we blinked and 4 or 5 hours went by. Your brewery is a place where once you start having fun, it really doesn't stop unless you watch the clock and get yourself home at a decent hour.
Last weekend was amazing because, obviously we have our weekly cribbage tournament, which has gone on 5+ years. We're known for it, but then the event ended up being just remarkably successful, as you saw. And then the next day we got to kick off Homegrown, which was also just a great pleasure. So it was a nice weekend.
Yeah, it's been a nice time of year in the community. It's been a nice time of year in the sports world, too, because we talked about this last week, Dave Hoops, and Dave Cook and I talked about it to open. Here we are. Another full week has gone by. The two teams maybe that we hold nearest and dearest right now are the Wolves and Twins. Oh, they haven't lost in quite a while.
Yeah, well, you know how I feel. But this is nothing unusual in over in my house watching these games. But,
right.
What I'm pretty excited about, you guys know the numbers. 1 win today. And I was looking, Boston and the Twins are really, really stacked up equally, although we've got Lopez today. But 1 win, we tie 1980, and 15 is the all-time record. I didn't realize that. I looked it up.
The 15 and 90, the 15 and 91 is such a huge deal. And you talk about, a win today, a Cleveland loss, I think, could potentially, depending upon how other teams do, actually put the Minnesota Twins in first. Entering play today, they technically would be in a playoff spot. Now I know that there are, 5 months left of the season, but considering where in the mind of some this team was dead and buried, it's just fun to say things like that.
Well, it's true, but, the talking heads on Major League Baseball channel, which we may not believe them, have been they've been sticking with the fact that the metrics say the Twins are still favored to win our division.
They have.
Which is great to hear, because I believe that no matter what. This is just a nice little thing. Now Duran's back. I don't know. When's Lewis coming back? Do you have any idea?
It sounds like he's tracking the right direction, but those words are really all they've said. Does that mean 2-3 more weeks? Does it mean 2 more months? I'm not entirely sure.
July 1st.
And it depends. What's your goal? If you're still winning, do you rush him back? I mean, Byron Buxton just went back on the IL, which to most of us that means it's baseball season. But if they keep winning, are you rushing him back either? I mean, when things are going well, you're not pining for guys that are out. Obviously, you want to get better, but you can take your time when you're not in a desperate spot.
I agree. And to the other series, I can't wait. It's kind of been on I already had Dallas getting.
Yeah, good call on their comeback, by the way. This is a heck of a series between those two.
Yeah, well, 100%. But, I already have Dallas winning that next series. That's how my bracket has worked out, which is not likely maybe, but that's what I think. But this is, I think the Wolves get to the finals if they win this game. I think it might go 7, but I would prefer 6, like he just said. But I can't wait to watch. And do we know if Finch is on the bench yet? Has it been announced?
I believe he was heading out there, which I think that's victory in itself, because I was thinking, okay, you just had a major knee surgery. How does flying factor into that just a couple of days later? But all we know right now is he's supposed to be there. I guess we'll find out, that kind of thing.
We need to put one of those cement barriers like they have at the drag races between
just
him
don't
and
show it to Jaden.
Right, don't show it to Jaden, and make sure Book knows that he's not playing anymore, so he hip checks anybody over it.
So, Dave Hoops, you talked about how great last weekend was, and it was. How about just the sports lineup, because you are a sports brewer, for today? Because the Twins will go for 12 a little after 1 o'clock, and then it's Kentucky Derby Day, and I believe post time is roughly 5:57. The Kentucky Derby is supposedly the fastest 3 minutes in sports. That brings you right to 6 o'clock. That's scheduled tip-off time for the Wolves. You could camp out at the brewery today and have yourself a good little day.
Oh, absolutely. And then, there is quite a bit of interest in the much-hated Bruins playing the much-maligned and, ineffective.
Right. Which one do you point and laugh at in that series?
Well, I'm rooting for the Leafs for a lot of reasons. I picked them to win that series. But a Game 7, we've got 2 Game 7s. I mean, we're not even talking Minnesota sports right here, but they're both captivating. That Dallas series has been outstanding. It's really, really, really great hockey. In fact, most of the time, I'm switching away from basketball because the games are already over, at least in the first round. It's been great hockey. So, yeah, it's a whole day of sports, and of course, tomorrow. And then Monday, my big series starts with the Canes. That's an epic series against the Rangers. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, the NHL playoffs have been quietly good. Obviously, I've been less interested because Minnesota is not participating, but Dave, I think you hit it on the head that it's been great hockey between the Stars and the Golden Knights. It's just weird to watch great hockey when you despise both teams. But one thing I don't despise at all is Dave Cook's life-altering questions. Time to shift gears, and we'll pass it to him for that again this week.
All right, I've got a Mother's Day question for you. I've got a music question for you, and I've got a sports question for you. Gentlemen, pick one.
That's Dave Hoops. You get to determine how this works.
Well, sorry, it's tomorrow, that game. I apologize. But let's start with Mother's Day.
All right, guys, we're throwing flowers out the window. Flowers is not the answer. So we've got a whole bunch of people listening that need to buy a Mother's Day gift for next week.
The bummer for me is my mom is listening, so I don't know how detailed I want to be.
No, we're going to ask about what might be the best Mother's Day gift, but it also could be the funnest. I don't know if funnest is a word, but you know what I mean.
It is now. Like you've ever gotten or will get?
That you were suggesting to our listeners
okay.
What the best gift, throw flowers out, what the best gift or the most fun would be.
All right, Dave Hoops, you get to go first because I think it's specific to each mother. This is hard.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to still have my mother, and so I've done something every 10 years. I've written a story, I guess, about the last 10 years and the role in my life and the appreciation I have. And, I think they like that. And, so this is, my mom's 81. So that's maybe we'll get 10 more. But that's kind of something I've personally been doing that works pretty well.
That's exceptional.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly well done. In fact, I'm glad I'm not a sibling of yours because I don't know how I could compete with that. If I'm like, well, here's my... I can't give you a bouquet of flowers, so here's a CD since you still use those and no one else does. But with my mom, she's got 2 phrases that I think she uses quite a bit. One is, it is what it is. Nobody says that in my life more than she does. And then the other thing that she says a lot is, I like what I like. And the good news with that is, it's very easy for me to pick out things that she's passionate about that I know she'll appreciate even if nobody else would. For example, I don't remember if it was her birthday or Christmas, but she is infatuated with the TV series Dateline. Well, the NBC store has a Dateline package where you can get a coffee mug that says Dateline, a giant throw blanket that says Dateline, things of that nature. And, as I get it, I'm like, who would want this? Well, I know exactly who would want this, my mom. And then one of the things that my mom is also very passionate about is her taste in music. We just bumped out with Paperback Writer by the Beatles. I've gotten her plenty of Beatles garb in my life. What I would like to get her this year, and I don't care that she's listening because maybe she'll say, don't bother, or yeah, let's do it.
Feel free to text, Mama.
Barry Manilow is coming to the cities in August. I would love to get concert tickets and take in Barry Manilow again with my mom. I think as a very young kid, I already did. I would love to do it again. It's probably the last time he's going to tour. It's a matter of if she'd go. But when I say specific to your mom, it's very specific with my mother.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go with the next question. All right, so we were leaving the stadium the other day after a Scholastica baseball win, and we had a whole bunch of people singing along with the song. So, guys, what's the best audience participation song?
Oh, this is too easy, but Dave Hoops, go ahead.
Oh, I'm not going to say Sweet Caroline or anything like that.
Okay, because I am. So go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Lately I've been listening to people scream all the small things during hockey games.
Yep.
And it just echoes out, and I don't even love that song, but I really think it's fun to listen to that. So I'm going to pick that one.
So I think the best, because that was a question, still is Sweet Caroline, but if you don't like the song, it's not. And if you're not a Red Sox fan, it's probably not. I find the versatility of Take Me Home Country Road in
that's a good one.
Any sporting event to be really exhilarating, because I think of that song as, well, you got to be of a certain age to know it. And then they'll play it at Amsoil, and it's like, wow, all the UMD kids know it now, so never mind that idea. I think if the sport is going well enough, just about everybody will participate in some way, shape, or form. Don't be surprised if we use Werewolves of London, because it's all Timberwolves talk these days. In the right parts, people may not know every lyric to the song, but everybody do the howl part. You'll get participation.
Nope, that's a good one. So the song that I'm referencing from the Scholastic game is Mr. Brightside.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids know every. It's like Bohemian Rhapsody for us, right? We know every.
Which is actually another good one.
The song Fat Bottom Girls, the first 10 seconds, everybody knows. But it's probably Journey's Don't Stop Believing, right?
Yeah. I love the band and I love the song, but sports has kind of ruined that one for me. Yeah.
Killed it. All right, so the last question is an interesting one. I heard it, and I wanted to ask you guys this immediately. The Minnesota Gophers are losing. Their basketball team is losing player after player after player to the NIL because they just don't have any money. So here's the question. At some point in the future, can you see a company buying a college basketball team? So could 3M actually buy Gopher basketball in order to help pay the kids?
I think it's already happening. I mean, I think we all do. It's just not terribly public. I think there's going to be more and more of that, and there's going to be corporate sponsorships of these teams that are bordering on ownership maybe. Yes, I can definitely see that happening.
I don't know if I can see it, but I think if I'm the University of Minnesota, I'm hoping for it.
Encouraging it, yeah.
Whether it's 3M, Hormel, Mall of America, whatever, General Mills, whatever you want to take from Minnesota to kind of foot the bill, because we've already heard the reactions to it. Well, now we're an NCAA junior varsity. We're a feeder program. People will get here, have any success, and leave. It won't be any different than how Minnesota pro sports was once viewed, maybe still is in some circles of, they get here and then they take off to New York or LA. So I guess I hope so, but at the same time I don't, because how many times have we preached this is ruining college sports?
Oh, college sports is over with as far as I'm concerned. It's been ruined.
Are we going to see that day?
Yeah.
Where college sports is over. Everything's going to just have a development league.
Yeah, that's what it'll be. College sports. They'll still use the fields and they'll still tie it to the college, but those kids probably at some point aren't going to have to go to classes.
The one thing that is great that it's never over is the ability to go to Hoops Brewing. I may exercise that option again later this afternoon. So again, it's a great place to be. Dave Hoops, give us kind of the once-over of what they can expect. So many great beers on tap.
Well, first, I wanted to mention I'll be talking to you guys from beautiful Madison next week, and as Finn graduates.
Very nice. Saturday. Congratulations to all involved on that.
Yes, thank you. As far as the brewery goes, brand new batch of Munich Lager, and all the other breweries are now releasing their Hefeweizens as they see as a summer beer. Our year-round Hefeweizen is always on tap, and we love it, and that's why we make it year-round. We have a brand new red IPA for those hop lovers out there, which isn't a style, but people like the word red in the beer. Peach and pear, of course, and then we also have, we're just finishing up on a shandy, which is going to be our summer kind of beerish thing, lemonade with a light lager.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yeah. That sounds amazing. Everything there is amazing. That's why I show up so often, and you, my friend, are amazing. Let's do this again. No matter where you are, you make the time for us. We'll talk to you from Madison next week.
Yeah, I can't wait. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks,
You
Dave.
as well. That is Dave Hoops of Hoops Brewing, the place to be each and every weekend, each and every day. They've got a lot of things going on during the week as well. A lot of Timberwolves talk. You can watch the game there as well. We'll talk Timberwolves with Rick Rickard when hour number 2 begins. That's when we come back on the Northland Sports page. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook, stick around.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.